Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are now continuing our discussion of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the previous session we concluded chapter 6. And chapter 6 had a description of the universal form. And this was in response to Sri Vidura's question to Sri Maitreya Rishi. So Sri Maitreya Rishi began describing the Lord's activities. And to start with, he began with a description of how the Lord is represented within the sphere of material activities. So in the previous session, we saw that the individual parts of the universal form have controlling deities who separate themselves, which means Krishna's original potency as universal form, which is basically the representation or the deity representation of how Krishna manages activities within the material universe. That has different potencies, and those potencies themselves empower specific demigods, and those demigods basically receive potency due to the function of the Lord. So there's the original function of the universal form, and then a demigod, for example, is given charge, and potency for the demigod comes from the universal form. So we notice, for example, that the ability to see or vision is represented in the eyes of the universal form, and then the deity form amongst the Devatas is Surya Dev. Then we also read about the fact that the arms of the universal form represent Indra. So the different demigods are separated energies, but then if you were to look at them as a representation of empowerment given by Krishna to manage the activities of the material sphere, then the universal form is basically the rupa or the deity form, or the rupa of Krishna in the universal form is representative of how he controls the different demigods' functions. So every aspect of our existence is controlled by different servants of Krishna, but they themselves are controlled by Krishna's universal form. Now, what is very important is for us to realize that as devotees, we brought in context the previous session, and the context is that we always need to represent and understand things and process things from the perspective of Harinam. And one of the most important things that we need to realize while chanting Harinam is that we are calling upon Krishna to appear into the atmosphere, and Krishna is the origin of everything else that is represented in the spiritual and the material sky. So when we call upon Krishna, we are also completely dependent on him. And that dependence is factually supported by Shastra. And the Shastric conclusion was read in the previous session about how the universal form represents a sum total of the different ways in which the material universe is managed by Krishna. And then there are the separated energies, and the separated energies are the different demigods. So there are times when Krishna talks about the fact that when people engage in the worship of Indra, when they worship, the different demigods, they are in fact worshiping him, but they're worshiping him in the wrong way, because he is the origin and he is the sum total, and these are separated energies. So we need to basically go back to representing and worshiping him in the original form. Now, the original form that is represented as the universal form here is distinctly considered material, and it is considered material because they use the word kala. Whenever the word kala appears, one has to understand that it has everything to do with material energy, because kala essentially is a representation of Lord Shiva. You see, time is a representation of Lord Shiva, because the destruction that occurs is nothing but the sunrise and sunset. Each and every day, as we pass through one sunrise and then we go on from one sunrise to the next sunrise, there's a certain level of destruction that is occurring. So our bodies dwindle, our age increases, and we get closer and closer to the point where we don't exist anymore in the representation that we have at this point. So whole purpose of using the word kala is to practically say that the universal form is a representation of the aspect of Krishna who manages the workings of the material universe, and that is Lord Shiva. And then the material energy herself is Mother Durga. So the external energy is being represented here, and this external energy practically is being managed by Lord Shiva, who is the energetic, and then Lord Shiva himself is an expansion of the expansion of Lord Krishna. So basically, Lord Shiva is the glance, and Mother Durga is an expansion of Mother Rama, who is the original personality of God, its consort, the potency of the Lord, the internal potency of the Lord. So, what is represented here in the universal form is generally not the form that is accepted by devotees who worship Krishna in his 200 form in, in Goloka, or by the worshippers of Vaikuntha, by the worshippers of the Ayodhya Dham, like Lord Hanuman, or different Vaikuntha Dham representations of Lord Narayan. These personalities are the original personalities of Godhead. The universal form has a time factor associated with it, and as a consequence, it's considered temporary, so we don't worship. But it is a form nevertheless, and it represents how the universal management of affairs is also taking place. So this is to be understood. So the two-armed form of Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra represented the universal form, and then he made a statement saying, "Oh, I am time." So when he says, "I am time," that is not the two-armed form which is making this statement. It is basically the universal form, because the two-armed form is the original personality of Godhead, who is untouched and who does not interfere with anything that happens here. However, his expansions do manage the material universe, and there's a component of time, which is Kala. As a consequence, one needs to understand that Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Vishnu, the three different personalities of Godhead, who are Guna avatars, who also manage the three different modes of nature, and then the respective consorts, they manage the material affairs. All of this is being seen in the universal form. So there's maintenance, there's destruction, there's creation. So there's a beginning, there's an end, and there's also a middle, but then this is not eternal, it's temporary because it's a manifestation of material energy. For us, it is relevant. It is relevant when we chant Harinam that everything is controlled by Nam, and that Nam's Rupa, which is Krishna in Vrindavan, Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, that particular form of the Lord, the expansions of the expansions of the expansions, and their involvement in material nature is being explained by Bhagavatam so that we can fortify our faith when we chant Harinam. So we understand that if there is an incident that occurs on the planet, it is because Krishna is involved, but not directly, but through his expansions who manage the material universe. So this is the understanding that we need to have. And this is also a matter of faith because we understand that each and every day there is basically complete management of everything that happens around us, which is done by the Lord. To the extent to which we are a part of material nature, to that extent to which there will be cooperation from the demigods because we are involved in bhakti, the extent to which we become dependent on the personality of God in his two-armed form in Vrindavan, to that extent he will get personally involved. So we'll have to understand that as well. The personal intervention of the Lord occurs when we become very personal with him and we desire nothing but his service. But otherwise, we are still helped because we are in the process of devotional service. So there's still support and there's still help, and there's all kinds of reinforcement that is provided to us as we proceed further. There's a great deal of cooperation of the demigods with devotees. Devotees can achieve so many wonderful things because there's a great deal of cooperation. Why? Because the demigods themselves are separated energies of the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord is an expansion. Sorry, this universal form is an expansion of the Supreme Lord whom we worship. The closer and closer and closer we understand who we are in relationship to Krishna, then greater would be our dependence on the person Krishna in Vrindavan. It's a very personal relationship. And as a consequence, there would be personal intervention by him. Otherwise, to the extent to which we depend on him as the creator, maintainer, destroyer, he will still support us, but then it will be according to the rules of material nature, and it will be according to the universal form's discretion in terms of how things are going to be. So there's a distinction between how devotees interact. The extent to which we feel separation from him, meaning the extent to which we don't recognize who we are, the extent to which we don't offer our time, the extent to which we don't really connect to him in the way we ought to in the eternal realm, to that extent, we would be dealt with by the expansions of the expansions of the expansions who have relevant official functions in managing the material universe. To that extent, we would be dealt with. However, it would still be good, it's highly beneficial. But the extent to which we are completely surrendered to him, to that extent, he'll get personally involved because that is exactly how personal interactions have to happen. This is like knowing someone who is extraordinarily powerful and who is at the top of the world, and the extent to which we are favorable to him, or rather, we are close to him, to that extent, he is going to get involved. The extent to which we align ourselves with his philosophy, or the extent to which we are distant from him, to that extent, basically, his servants would take care of us because they see favorable attitude in us. They see us as a favorable addition to the material universe, which is going to have positive impact on others. So we need to have a distinction in terms of what we are. But each and every time, each and every one of us picks up the beads and calls upon Harinam, we are drawing Krishna into the atmosphere. Have no doubt about it that when you are calling Krishna's names while chanting Harinam, he is coming into the atmosphere. The problem is that we have weaknesses and we have so many other coverings that we can't perceive him. We can't really perceive him. How does one understand the presence of Krishna in their lives? The way we understand Krishna's presence in our lives is to be able to render physical service, to be able to render physical service, to be able to render devotional service. All knowledge would manifest without any effort if devotional service is rendered. When you travel or when you live in Vrindavan, in the Dham, there are certain experiences that come to you quite naturally. And sometimes you just interact with people who live in Vrindavan, the locals, and regardless of what they do, the locals are extraordinarily fortunate. Just imagine what are the odds of being born in this small patch of land? What are the odds of being able to live in the small patch of land? What are the odds of being able to sustain oneself by doing something in the small patch of land, which is Vrindavan? I mean, you could be born in any part of the world, but what is it about you which brings you here to be born here? This makes everyone in Vrindavan completely respectable. We have to understand that everyone here is completely respectable by us and worthy of respect simply because they have somehow or the other, the jiva has somehow or the other been so blessed to be born in the eternal realm of Vrindavan, where every day from morning to night, they receive a lot of stimulation of their senses from a devotional perspective. While they walk, they are walking in the Dham. While they rest, they are paying obeisances to some deity. And then, while they honor prasadam, if the food is cooked well, Krishna sometimes would partake in different houses in Vrindavan. They wouldn't know, and they would eat food which is being cooked here, which is prasadam. Even if it is not being offered, Krishna would partake if it is very nice, because it is his town. This is his village. And then you also have exposure to spiritual potency in such a powerful way that somehow or the other you end up doing service. Yesterday, I had this experience where I was going from my home to Seva Kunj, and then I was walking for some distance up to some distance, and then I realized that it's easier for me to take a rickshaw because it would get me sooner to the place I wanted to go to. Now, anyways, to cut a long story short, I got a ride with a rickshawala, and in Vrindavan, if most of you have visited, the rickshaws have two sides. You can sit in the back. If the rickshaw is full, you have to share the seat of the driver. So the rickshaw was full, so I shared the seat with the driver. And then I asked him, how much should I pay him? I told him that, we haven't discussed how much I should give you for you to drop me. He said, there's no need for you to pay me anything. I will just drop you as it is. Then I asked him, how is that possible? You have to tell me what I should pay you so that I can just compensate you. He said, then you give me whatever you feel like giving me. You don't need to give me anything more than what you feel like giving me. Then I told him, no, you tell me what is the amount. Then I would be able to compensate you properly. Then in Hindi, he was telling me that I don't bargain and neither do I ask money. And he used the word from saints and Mahatmas. Okay. He said, I will not ask money from saints and Mahatmas. This is the pledge I take, and this is how I work every day. So then I asked him, how do you know whether I'm a saint or a Mahatma? So how do you know? You see, I'm just who I am. You see, I have no particular bearing. I don't have, I don't profess to be anything. So how do you know I'm a saint or a Mahatma? Then how do you judge whether I'm a saint or a Mahatma? He said, if you weren't a saint or a Mahatma, you wouldn't be pursuing the course of wanting to know who you are and wanting to know the Paramatma. This is from a rickshaw man. Quite, quite extraordinary that a rickshaw man was giving me high philosophy, which we can agree with. And he was telling me that you wouldn't really be going on the path of the Paramatma, seeking who you are and wanting to love him. And everybody who does that is a Mahatma. So I was just fascinated that someone who basically, does the work of Rikshawala here in Vrindavan, who appears quite coarse, he was quite, I would say, ordinarily positioned in terms of his appearance, etc. No tilak, nothing extraordinary. But then he had some very specific grounding on how he operated. And he also had some very good ideas on how to consider whom to give respect to and whom not to give respect to. So I was quite astonished. So what I'm trying to say is that the idea of just being here, regardless of what functions one may do, somehow or the other, they end up doing some service. And because of the service, they gain knowledge. And that knowledge does not come through scholarship, it comes through realization. And then they start relating to the world with that knowledge with great confidence because it is very deeply seated in their hearts. So it's quite fascinating to see what would happen if you were to come in touch with a bona fide path such as ours, which is being given by a great personality such as Srila Prabhupada, represented by the books that he has written for us to follow. And then we also get initiated in the same line as Srila Prabhupada by the followers of Srila Prabhupada. And then we have the ability to call upon Harinam with a lot of knowledge and with a lot of resources that have been made available. Then how is it possible for us to ever fall into any kind of distress of not knowing what the future is? It's impossible because we basically have been given everything, and we have been given so much more than someone who happens to know what is appropriate because he is born here and he is constantly mingling with people who come here for yatras and so on and so forth. And he serves them in whatever capacity he can. And then he gains knowledge, he gains blessings. So, how could we say that we don't have an opportunity? We have been given more opportunities than most people because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, because he has given us everything. He has given us the facility to chant, he has given us an extraordinarily powerful philosophical structure and a basis for us to act on a daily basis. And then he has given us a structure of getting initiated so that we could be helped in our chanting, because the initiation process within our Siddhanta is purely focused on wanting to assist the jiva in being able to chant nicely as Lord Chaitanya would want us to. And then he has given us basically a good opportunity to understand Krishna through the deity forms, because we had no idea. Then he gave us an opportunity for us to be able to approach the deity. He has given us different ways to approach the deity. There are whole big deity worship standards and so many other things that have been established. And then he has also given us a glimpse of what Vrindavan is. because he practically took Vrindavan and he distributed it to the whole world, which is what Srila Prabhupada did, because every temple of ours is designed with the objective of us participating in what we would call as a simulation of Vrindavan fully. So in many ways, basically Srila Prabhupada created Vrindavan around the world. He has practically created Vrindavan in every city, in major city. And this is just fascinating to see that we have been facilitated so deeply, and we have so much to be grateful for. On a daily basis, we have so much to be grateful for because we have been given so much. And it is quite fascinating to see that the power of what has been given is so great that all kinds of knowledge comes to us effortlessly. It is quite effortless. It's an observation where the children who learn music, the children who perform different things in our movement, they pick up things so nicely in such a short while because there's potency, they have a desire to preach. And as a consequence, somehow or the other, they pick up all these skills. So we are very, very fortunate. So the point we are trying to make here is that we have the ability to approach the Supreme Lord Himself, and we are approaching the Supreme Lord in an extraordinarily powerful, proximate, personal way because Srila Prabhupada is intervening on our behalf. The knowledge that's being given in the Srimad Bhagavatam is practically facilitating our surrender, is facilitating our ability to understand Krishna, and is facilitating our ability to understand the different processes of approaching Him. And it is also distinguishing this because many of us, for example, wouldn't have been able to distinguish the universal form from the two-arm form. We wouldn't have been able to unless the Srimad Bhagavatam raises this question, establishes authority, and then we are able to discuss it quite extensively and have this understanding that yes, the universal form is the management of the material universe. However, it's temporary. And the original personality of Godhead, who is two-armed, and Radha Krishna, basically they are the original personalities. And we have been given that particular connection as well. So now there is such knowledge that is just flowing through that we can't just go wrong. Now, this is basically an attempt by Srila Prabhupada and our predecessors to remove Namaparad so that we are able to distinguish different levels of personalities whom we are dealing with in the spiritual sphere. We are able to distinguish Krishna. We are able to distinguish Srimati Radharani. We are able to distinguish their expansions. We are able to deal with each as they are supposed to be. This is critical. This is but Namaparad. This Namaparad is being removed because if there are misconceptions, then there's a cloud when we chant Harinam. The sun of Harinam will not shine through in our hearts when such clouds of misunderstanding appear. Now, this Krishna Sambandha that is flowing through is dislodging all these clouds, and the sun of Harinam can then shine very brightly in our hearts. This is the other way where Srimad Bhagavatam practically is removing these clouds by the discussions between Sri Vidura and Maitreya Rishi. All these clouds are being scattered so that the holy name would flourish in our hearts, and we are able to see the holy name. Because these are misconceptions. These are misconceptions, perhaps a lack of understanding. Maybe there is a misconception that has existed for centuries. All of that is being uprooted and thrown away. So we need to understand that this is all being done to facilitate Harinam. This is very, very important for us. Okay. Now, in this particular chapter, there's a further discussion between Sri Vidura and Sri Maitreya Rishi. And this particular chapter, we're going to look into some more questions which are being asked. And these questions themselves are clarifications that are being provided. And these doubts themselves are being raised as if to represent our doubts so that they could be cleared by Maitreya Rishi. So let's go into chapter 7. As we ended chapter 6, the chapter 7 says, Further Inquiries by Vidura. And the first verse, translation, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, while Maitreya, the great sage, was thus speaking, Vidura, the learned son of Dvaipayana Vyasa, expressed a request in a pleasing manner by asking this question. So here is Sri Vidura, who is the son of Srila Vyasadeva, and then Maitreya Rishi is an accomplished sage who is Krishna conscious. Now, this conversation is practically being given to us so easily by Srila Prabhupada, so easily. It's just fascinating to see how Srila Prabhupada has facilitated us. Sri Vidura said, O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete spiritual whole, is the complete spiritual whole, and is unchangeable, how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do the activities of the unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the modes of nature? Yeah. So basically, the question again is a furtherance of just sorting out and removing our doubts. The question is, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the complete spiritual whole and is unchangeable, why is he using the word unchangeable? It is because the universal form is changeable. It appears and then it disappears. It is filled with material activities. So it's a representation of the Supreme Lord's connection and potency, which facilitates the management of the three modes of nature, but it is not unchangeable. So Krishna is unchangeable. The universal form is changeable because he uses the word kala, time. Whenever the word kala is being used, then it means that everything can change. It is basically change itself, time itself. Then how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do the activities of the unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the modes of nature? So if he's basically trying to distinguish Krishna and the universal form further. Now, this is again Vidura, second verse. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged with desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything that at all times. So here Sri Vidura is saying that even if one were to say that he is basically Krishna is involved just so that he can have some fun, because on a whim, you see young boys when they're playing, very young boys and girls when they're playing, they act whimsically because they just don't have a plan. They feel that they must just get involved. They may just go and kick a ball from one side to the other. They may have some kind of a game which may remain unfinished, so on and so forth. These are activities of children who do so because they feel that it's fun. Then Sri Vidura is saying that Krishna cannot have such desires because he is always satisfied and he's also detached and from everything at all times. So, how is he involved in this material activity of basically creation, maintenance, and destruction, which is just like a child's play? It is a child's play from the perspective of Krishna. But Vidura is saying, why would he engage in something like this? Is he not satisfied? He is always satisfied. He is also detached. How do you create, maintain, destroy with a detached demeanor? How do you do that if you're detached? It's not possible. You see, if you're detached, there would be very little action that will come forth because you don't have any interest. If you're satisfied, you're not going to act either because it will lead to complacency. So his question is, how is he doing it? Because he is neither attached to all of these things. He's quite detached from material nature. Neither is he lacking satisfaction that he has to act in all of these ways. So, why is he doing it? By his self sheltered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her, he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again. By his self centered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her, he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again. So now, here they're talking about how the material universe is being managed. This is again a continuance of Sri Vidura. He is very clear. The material universe is managed by Mother Durga. She is material energy. She is the external energy. She manages it with Lord Shiva. As a consequence, Lord Shiva, at the end of this particular creation, he destroys it. And then during the beginning, he practically acts as the seed giving father. He acts as the seed giving father. In one sense, the whole concept of nurturing and bringing forth the material universe, creating it, putting it into play, is done by material energy. It is almost like a mother who has accepted a child or a fetus into her womb and then cultures it, nurtures it, and then puts it out to play. This is what Mother Durga does along with Lord Shiva. So it's almost as if a material father and a material mother would engage in union, and then they would nurture and raise a creation, and that basically would be their activity. This is the activity of Lord Shiva and Mother Durga. This is how they manage this particular activity. So here, Sri Vidura is basically saying, by his sheltered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. He has caused the creation of this universe. By her, he maintains the creation, and conversely dissolves it again and again. So there's creation, there's maintenance and destruction, and all of this is done by external energy who expands into different particular personalities, and then the Lord consorts with the external energy as Lord Shiva. Yesterday was Shivratri, by the way, Mahashivratri, and everybody fasts here in Vrindavan. Lord Shiva in Vrindavan is extraordinarily dear to the Vaishnavas. He is Gopeshwara Mahadev, and his position of Gopeshwara Mahadev is very significant because if all of you have been to Vrindavan, most of you would have. There is a particular spot in Vrindavan which is called Vamsi Vat. Vata essentially means that which is sheltered by a very, very large vriksha, a very large tree, a vata vriksha. You see, a banyan tree, as we would call it. It's a vata vriksha. And basically, that vata vriksha is the vriksha under which Krishna used to stand and he used to play his flute, the Vamsi. And when he plays his flute, he used to attract the minds of everyone, and everybody used to simply drop all their activities. And this is Radharani and her friends. They all used to run because Krishna used to play the Vamsi under the Vratavriksha, and then they used to have a dance. You see, the Vamsi, Krishna's flute, is also considered to be a messenger, just as much as Vrinda Devi, who manages the garden of Vrindavan, Vrindavaneshwari. She basically manages everything in Vrindavan on behalf of Radharani. She is also considered a messenger. You see millions and millions of parrots here in Vrindavan all the time. You can hear parrots more here than everywhere else. And then I always used to feel that in different parts of the world, in different parts of India, they are dominated by crows. You can hear a lot of crows in different parts of India. In Vrindavan, you hear parrots. So Vrinda Devi basically uses parrots and conveys messages to the divine couple. They carry messages from Srimati Radharani to Krishna, and they carry messages from Krishna to Srimati Radharani. The parrots go and then convey everything. Now, Vamsi, Krishna's flute, competes with the parrots because the Vamsi is also sending secret messages. And the Vamsi, as Krishna plays the Vamsi, he is practically calling upon his friends so that he could have a rasa dance. So this Vamsi Vata is a place which is in Vrindavan, and there is a very elaborate rasa dance which happens in the evening. Now, just behind the Vamsi Vata is the temple of Gopeshwar Mahadev. What is fascinating about Gopeshwar Mahadev's temple there is the fact that that is the gate to the spiritual sky. If you want to enter into the spiritual sky, you have to go to Gopeshwar Mahadev because he's sitting there at the gate. And then, with his permission, then one can go to Vamsivat, one can go to the other temples, etc. Because the most confidential spot is Vamsivat. And there you have Gopeshwar sitting, God. So, what is fascinating is in the morning, he is Shiva. He is like a Shivalinga. So people go there, they offer him worship, and then they pay obeisances and receive his blessings. And then they basically do Abhishek for Lord Shiva in the morning. In the evening, if you visit Gopeshwar, you will see him dressed as a gopi. It's quite fascinating. Actually, they dress him up so well that he sits as a gopi. And for those of you who haven't seen him in the evening, you'll be shocked because in the morning, he is a Shivaling. In the evening, he becomes a gopi. because he's then Gopeshwar Mahadev. He is asking Krishna and Radharani to allow him to participate. And then they tell him that no, 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 you are a male and you have to come back as a gopi. So in the evening, he comes back as a gopi. And then he sits there as Gopeshwara right at the gate of the spiritual sky. And nobody can enter the spiritual sky without his blessings. So if you come for Dham Yatra, you have to go to Gopeshwar first. Because without paying respects to Gopeshwar, you will not be able to see the Dham. If you enter the Dham without paying respects to Gopeshwar, then you will see the gutter, you will see the sewers, you will see the monkeys, you will see, the many stray dogs, you will see, the pigs. You will then say that this is Vrindavan. But if you go to Gopeshwar, then he can give you vision. He will remove the material layer and then give you a glimpse of the spiritual sky. So it's important to get the blessings of Gopeshwar Mahadev before you come in here. So the point being that for us, for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas even, and for the Vrindavan Vasis specifically, he is very special because he is the most exalted Vaishnav. Yeah, we have to realize his position as being the Param Vaishnav. He is a Mahabhagavad Vaishnav. He is someone who can deliver the soul to Krishna's lotus feet. He is a Mahabhagavad. He is basically understood and he is completely Krishna conscious. And he is also the expansion of the Lord. He is not different from the Lord in one sense, while still being a little different for the purpose of the activities in the material world. And his potency of Lord Mother Durga, she basically is the external energy, but is also Yogamaya, who is the potency of the Lord to bring back souls back to the engagement of Krishna's service. So the same personality can take two different roles. In the spiritual sky, the activities of coming together with Krishna is arranged by Yogamaya. In the material sky, the management of the material universe and the destruction of false ego, that's done by Mahamaya. Because destruction is nothing but destruction of false ego. The ultimate false ego is this body. When the body is destroyed, then there is recognition by those who surround the body. There's recognition of the soul as well, that this body is a sum total of false ego. There's nothing but false ego. You might have achieved hundreds of things. We could have achieved hundreds of things in this world. But then one day the body becomes a dead body. Everything is finished. And that day the false ego is destroyed. So that's why Lord Shiva practically destroys false ego by destroying the body. He destroys the entire material creation because it is false, along with his material energy, with his consort, Mother Durga. They destroy it because this is nothing but a representation of false ego. The real identity of the Jiva is at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord in Vrindavan. And the real identity is established when the false identity is removed. But then how do you remove the false identity? The false identity is removed when we come in touch with devotional service. This is given beautifully by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about how that the jiva is like water, and when water comes in touch with very low temperature, it turns into ice. And when it turns into ice and stays as ice, everybody starts calling water ice. You see, no one calls ice water. They just say water or they say ice. If it is frozen, it's ice. Yeah. It is just ice. That's what it is. There really isn't any distinction. But then in reality, there has been a particular change that has occurred to water. The change itself is coming in touch with low-grade experiences in the material world. When the jiva comes in touch with low-grade experiences in the material world, when the jiva's limbs come in touch with low-grade experiences, the jiva transforms, and as a consequence, the jiva starts assuming that that particular role that the jiva is playing is particularly himself or herself. The identity changes. Then if this happens over several lifetimes, you can imagine the layers and layers and layers of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and all kinds of misidentification that has actually happened over millions of lifetimes. We start believing that this is true. But then when the ice is put in touch with very warm water, then the ice starts taking on the quality of water again because it starts melting. In a similar fashion, when we come in touch with devotional service, our nature changes because we are coming in touch with the original component. Because the original component is basically the potency of the Lord. It is Harinam. Then we're coming in touch with Harinam, and we're coming in touch with Dham, we're coming in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, we're coming in touch with the deity. Then the ice starts melting, and the water again starts flowing freely. So this is our state. So basically, Lord Shiva facilitates that particular state, and he practically destroys the false ego. The material energy, who is Mother Durga, who is controlled by Mother Durga, she basically is Krishna's external energy. So she's all powerful. This is Krishna's external energy. So she is all powerful. So we can't really say that we can distinguish that. She is, in one sense, she is Krishna's external energy, as so she's very powerful. She's all powerful. In another sense, he is the controller because he controls the energy. He is the Purusha. So as a consequence, we worship him, and thereby she basically respects those who worship him because she is also subservient to him. So this is how it works. Now, the point we're trying to make here is that coming in touch with devotional service and engaging our limbs is very, very important. Engaging our limbs is very, very important. So this is very important for us to engage in some kind of seva, as menial as it may be, is actually quite befitting because it can actually change and transform and bring our original nature back in a very fast way. This is what Srila Prabhupada wanted to do. He wanted to take every one of us and put us into some kind of an opportunity for service, which would bring back our original nature. So service starts with what we are motivated to do, and then service goes into what Krishna wants us to do. This example is given that initially we are operating on a false ego. Because we operate on a false ego, we tend to do things that we are interested in doing. And then we think that Krishna also is going to accept it because, yes, we are doing it, so Krishna should accept it. But then later on, as we mature in our understanding, we have the ability to be more sensitive to Krishna's needs, and we start making adjustments. We start acting according to Krishna's needs. This adjustment occurs when we come in touch with sadhus, when we come in touch with Nam in a very nice way, where we are chanting very seriously, then we can understand the Lord. Then we also come in touch with Krishna as a deity form. Then he will make us do things which he wants us to do. He will give us intelligence. He would say that do this, do that, do all these changes. This intelligence also comes to us very naturally. So that is the whole sum total. So there is a whole idea of us coming into knowledge, and knowledge is nothing but our identification with our eternal service to Krishna. This is knowledge. And this knowledge will happen naturally. One does not have to be a scholar. Scholarship has no merit here, even though it's useful, it is not a requirement. Because it's not a requirement, it was even proven to us. Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was the guru of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was a complete illiterate, but he was fully realized in Krishna consciousness. And as a consequence, a great scholar like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur found it absolutely necessary and worthwhile and good fortune for him to take shelter from Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj. So again, that is represented. I think today is also tomorrow actually is the disappearance of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Now, this is again an example. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, nobody can estimate his age. People are saying he was born in 1750, and some say it's 1800. Nobody can really estimate what his age was. So the actual calculation, when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came in touch with him, that he was approximately 100 years old. And if you walk along the Yamuna here on Parikrama Marg, there's a way here which is called the Parikrama Marg, the road where you do Parikrama in Vrindavan. There is a place called Shringarvat. Shringarvat is basically where Krishna used to basically assist Radharani in her makeup, combing her hair, etc. There's a very intimate, nice pastime of Krishna actually assisting and decorating Srimati Radharani. This is Shringarvat, and this is on the banks of the Yamuna. But as you walk closer to it, that is where Sri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj used to be. He used to do his bhajan in that area. And then he also had a place in Mayapur, and he used to be very closely associated with Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur considered him his Siksha Guru. Siksha Parampara essentially means the personality who inspires Bhaktivinoda Thakur to further his devotional service. And that personality was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, whom we have on our altar. Now, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was a Siddha Purusha. He was around 150 years old, or approximately, I'm not sure. When he left his body, when he conducted his pastime, but he used to be carried around by one of his servants. His name was Bihari Lal, and his servant was quite a stocky, muscular person. Even at the age of 80, the servant used to carry Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj on top of his head. The 80-year-old man used to carry the 150-year-old man on top of his head, and they used to go on parikrama. They used to travel all over the place. And this was 150 years back. And and the point being that Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he basically used to practically come in touch with what I would call as the Dham and have complete realization of the wonder of Krishna's celestial abode, which is Vrindavan, and Lord Gauranga's abode, which is Mayapur, which is non-different. And he used to be completely immersed in the consciousness that every grain of sand in Vrindavan and Mayapur is practically the original grain of sand in the original spiritual sky, which is the truth in reality. It is the truth because it is basically, I would say, interspersed to such an extent that it is the truth. It is practically the truth that every grain of sand is practically a grain of sand in the spiritual sky. And there were examples how Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj used to eat from a plate, and he also used to feed dogs in the same plate as he was eating, which means as he was eating, the dog will also come and he would eat, not from the same area, but then he used to keep a little bit of amount. And he used to say that this particular dog is a Damvasi. He stays in the Dham, so he is practically, to be worshipped, to be respected. So he used to respect even the dogs and the cats and everything else in the Dham because that was his consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted a sign to the sign that he was looking for beyond his knowledge and beyond his perception, which is he already knew where the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya was because he had visions. In Surabhi Kunj, which is across the Ganga in Mayapur, he could see the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. But then he wanted to establish and have a second opinion, which is basically unsullied or which has a completely different opinion. So he wanted Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj to come to re-establish, or rather identify, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. So it is said that this 130, 140-year-old Babaji, when he reached Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Mayapur near the Yoga Peeth where Lord Chaitanya was born, he was carried by his servant Bihari Lal on top of his head, and he jumped out of the basket and started dancing, chanting Haribol, chanting the Maha Mantra, and he started engaging in kirtan when he came to the place. This was a spontaneous reaction because he could see the potency and he could see Lord Gauranga, he could see the baby Nimai, he could see the pastimes of Lord Gauranga in that particular spot, the birth pastimes and everything else that occurred. He could actually visualize this. So the point which we're trying to make here is that this is not a phenomenon which could come by scholarship. This is not a phenomenon that is to be understood by scholarship, where one has the ability to apply their intelligence and intellectually debate something and perceive spiritual wonder. This is basically the effect of Harinam. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all the predecessor acharyas, whatever they have contributed so far is nothing but the potency of Harinam. We have to understand that this is the potency of being dedicated to chanting Harinam and having faith in Harinam, that so many wonderful accomplishments have happened in our past. Yeah. The scholarship and the ability to do a few things existed in them. There's no doubt about the fact that they were skilled. There's no doubt about the fact that they were extraordinarily qualified in many ways. But then the real potency of unworthing, unlocking and unearthing, Lord Chaitanya's pastime, this is not possible by mere scholarship. It is not possible by being skilled. It is not possible. You can't establish certain things by just being skilled or being knowledgeable or being efficient. You can't do any of that. This requires potency. It requires potency. It almost appears as if Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he had so much potency that he would not want to leave the planet until the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya were re-established and a temple was started in the Yoga Peeth. And his potency and his determination was such that it practically shattered the covering which kept the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya hidden. So there is no ordinary, circumstance of him heading our parampara. Do not think of that as an ordinary circumstance. His potency was such that he had the ability to practically demolish and remove and uncover and bring forth the potency of Lord Chaitanya and assist Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That is why he was there. He was practically hanging on until the age of 140 just to be able to completely uncover the pastimes of Lord Gauranga in Mayapur with the help of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this is our parampara. It is all completely based on Harinam. So I was just wanting to say that if we have to achieve anything, if we need strength, we need Harinam. Without Harinam, nothing is going to be accomplished. Skills are going to be useful, but those skills themselves can be granted quite easily by Harinam as well. Yeah, so we have to understand it. And I was wanting to say that this is not an intellectual exercise. This is particularly devotional service means us being able to serve Krishna wonderfully by coming in touch with the original spiritual potency. And by coming in touch with the original spiritual potency, our false ego gets shattered and the original ego, which is our identity with Krishna, starts flourishing. When it starts flourishing, all kinds of wonderful things happen, which is what we need to understand from the great personalities who have preceded us. The great personalities who have been on the planet, who have given us everything, they basically depended on Krishna and their original potency of being related to Krishna. It started flourishing by the mercy of Harinam. And that practically had an effect of establishing this entire parampara and by being able to give us what we have today. So we have to understand it in the context that we need to do something very basic, and that is for us to be able to facilitate and chant Harinam. Yeah. So here, Sri Vidura is further, he's questioning Maitreya Rishi. And this Maitreya Rishi's questions are very clear. He's saying that why would Krishna basically get involved in material energy? That is being answered so shortly, but I was wanted to give an explanation. The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situations, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in nescience? How does the pure soul become engaged in nescience? We spoke about it, about how water can be converted to ice and how ice can be converted back into water. Remember that example? The Lord as the super soul is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery? So, how does a living entity who is pure consciousness engage in activity which is nothing but unfortunate and cause misery to themselves and misery to others? It is because of coming in touch with material energy. When the living entity comes in touch with devotional potency, then the misfortune is reversed and great fortune results. O great and learned one, this is Vidura in great humility. O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of this nations, and I therefore request you to clear it up. Srila Sukadev Goswami said, O King Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious. Sri Maitreya Rishi was agitated. They use the word, he was agitated by the inquisitiveness and the questions of Sri Vidura. But then, because he was God conscious, he replied to him without hesitation. He was agitated because he couldn't understand how Sri Vidura could be asking questions of such nature. It is because Sri Vidura himself was an extraordinarily accomplished scholar, and he was also the personified demigod of dharma, of duties. How then could he be confused? So here, Maitreya Rishi is actually quite, I would say, astonished, because he's saying, how is Vidura asking me these questions? But He wasn't disturbed by that. He started speaking and started giving answers. Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time, they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Yeah? So he cannot be overcome by Maya. Krishna cannot be overcome by Maya because Maya is subservient to him. Lord Shiva is able to control Maya. How is he able to control Maya? Because he's a Mahabhagavat, he is a great Vaishnava. He is able to control Maya because he's completely surrendered in his heart. Lord Shiva, who is an expansion of the Supreme Lord, is completely surrendered in his heart. That is why he is a Mahabhagavat, he is a great Vaishnava. And because he is completely surrendered, he has the ability to manage Krishna's external potency, Mahamaya. Yeah. So Krishna is never under any kind of illusion. He comes under the influence of Yogamaya. He comes under the influence of Yogamaya to facilitate Leela. So, for example, you could talk about, for example, the circumstance of Lord Sri Ram. Lord Sri Ram and Mother Sita and Lord Ram's brother Sri Lakshman, they were in the forest, and then you had the episode of a golden deer. So one may question, saying, how is it possible that Mother Sita, who is the personified goddess of fortune, how would she not know that a golden deer doesn't exist? How is it possible that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Ram, could run after a golden deer when he knew that the golden deer doesn't exist? Are they being subjugated by material energy? The answer is no. This is Leela. This is practically Yogamaya. Yogamaya is facilitating Leela. Yogamaya is facilitating the pastime. As a consequence, the Lord subjects himself and is allowed. He's practically, this is his internal potency. This is not his external potency. This is his internal potency of wanting to connect in different ways and wanting to allow the servants of Lord Sri Ram, like Lord Sri Hanuman and others, to render some service. As a consequence, he is allowing Yogamaya to cover his ability to practically distinguish what is true and what isn't true. This is Yogamaya. This is not Mahamaya. Now, let's take one more example. Parikshit Maharaj, whose entire body was destroyed by the Brahmastra, and again it was put together by the mercy of the Lord. It is said that when Krishna is facilitating, then it will never interfere or cause any confusion in dealing with material energy, which means that Parikshit Maharaj's entire existence was facilitated by Krishna. Then how could he fall into the trap of taking a snake, a dead snake, and offending a great sage, whilst being a personality who came in the lineage of the Pandavas and who was also a great devotee of the Lord? How could this devotee practically lose his mind to such an extent that he could pick up a dead snake and put it around a great sage's neck? This is Yogamaya. This is the time factor to facilitate so many different activities that have to happen. This particular notion of Parikshit Maharaj falling under the influence of the time factor is facilitated by Krishna's internal potency. Because he's a great devotee, he is subjected to the internal potency, forcing him to act in certain ways to facilitate the Leela of the Lord, facilitate the speaking of Srimad Bhagavatam, to facilitate so many other wonderful things. The point being that he is not under the influence of Mahamaya, he is under the influence of Yogamaya. Yeah, but there is the supreme time factor. When I use the word supreme time factor, I'm talking about the time factor that controls material time. There is the desire of the Supreme Lord Himself. This is not material time which acts according to the interaction of Jiva with the modes of nature. This is supreme time. Yeah, the supreme time practically can force one to act in certain ways to facilitate the cause of great events. So, what happened due to Parikshit Maharaj putting a snake around the great sage's neck? Normally, that would be considered highly inauspicious. But did it result in inauspiciousness? Absolutely not. So, one should always look to see what the results are. Are the results auspicious? Yes. because Shri Parikshit Maharaj was able to hear from Srila Sukadev Goswami. His hearing from Srila Sukadev Goswami is what is facilitating our discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam today. So how could that be inauspicious? So this is Yogamaya again. So in that sense, what does happen is that they practically use examples where Krishna externally appears to be bewildered, and then use these examples to say that he is under the control of Maya, or to say his Leela is under the control of Maya, or his Leela and activities are all temporary by nature. So they say this because they're bewildered and they can't understand. And why can't they understand? Because there is no devotional service. There is no devotional service. They are not coming in touch with the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam in the parampara of devotional service. This is very important. It is very important for us to come in touch with teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita from a parampara which is engaging in devotional service. That is what allows us to distinguish truth from mistruth. Because they will claim that they have read Srimad Bhagavatam. They will claim they have read Srimad Ramayana. They will claim they have read all the scriptures, but then they make the fundamental mistake that Krishna is subject to his external energy, which is not true, which is not true at all. And the reason why they're bewildered is because they are coming in touch with it through the external energy. They have no ability to basically act upon it. The whole concept is not controlled by the parampara. So here, what I'm saying is that this particular verse is talking about the illogical statements made by many philosophers where they say that Krishna is also subject to material energy. No, he's not. There can be Yogamaya, but not Mahamaya. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. This is Maitreya Rishi resolving doubts about the living entity's bewilderment, that even though the living entity is pure, why is the living entity acting in such a mad way? Why is the living entity an illusion? Now he is saying, that he is practically explaining that there is an issue with identity, which is exactly what we spoke of. The issue with us is our identity crisis. If you establish an identity based on a relationship which you have in this world, then there would be bewilderment because it's temporary. It's constantly changing, it's subject to change, it's subject to destruction, it is subject to all kinds of tribulation. So there would be a lot of destruction, there will be a lot of confusion if there is an identification with anything in this world which is temporary. However, when we come in touch with the power of devotional service and the eyes, which is our transformed form, it is water coming in touch with low temperature turns into ice. Low temperature is changed to high temperature, then ice turns back into water. Then as we come back into our original identity, everything starts making sense. This is basically our system. So one has to understand that the living entity is bewildered because there is an identity crisis. We identify and establish and water so many different identities we have in this world. There are economic identities which are related to the workplace. There are personal relationship identities that are related to women and men at home whom we could be associated with. And then there is this whole identity with the body and the family and lineage, which is also there. All of this is temporarily true, but is a cause of bewilderment. When it comes in touch with the original spiritual identity, when we start watering it, then we start getting transformed. Everything else becomes clear, everything else becomes lucid. This is the jiva practically waking up and becoming spiritually so powerful that everything is becoming clear. As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Yeah, there's a beautiful example that's being given here. When we see the moon being reflected on water, we see the moon to be a little distorted. Does it mean that the moon is distorted? The answer is no. Because we are seeing it, our vision is distorted. We are looking at a refracted medium. We are looking at it in water. As a consequence, it's all completely distorted. But that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. When the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished as after a sound sleep. So when you talk about when the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all the miseries are completely vanquished as after a sound sleep. When the senses are merged in him, essentially means that our senses become a part and parcel of Krishna's senses in the sense that we start acting for his pleasure. When our senses are purified and a spiritual body takes over, we start acting for his pleasure, and automatically all the bewilderment goes away. Yeah, all the bewilderment goes away as if you wake up after a sound sleep. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained traction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? Vidura said, O powerful sage, my Lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them. Okay, we'll stop here for this week. I can take a couple of questions if you have any before we end the session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. I can hear you. Go ahead.
So,
Dandavat.
Prabhuji, you were discussing about the different forms of Gopeshwar Mahadev. Like in the morning, he's in the different form, and in the evening, he's dressed up as a gopi. So, is there anything like as a Vaishnav that we should that if we have like what darshan is recommended for us? Does it make a difference if we have if we go in the morning or if we go in the evening?
No, it doesn't. You go in the morning, you worship him as Lord Shiva, you offer Abhishek because he represented as Lord Shiva there. And then in the evening, you can have an understanding that he is Gopeshwar Mahadev. So there really isn't any difference. We can go in the morning or the evening. We should go both ways, both times. So there really isn't a need for us to distinguish at this time. There isn't a distinguishment. The point I'm trying to make is in Vrindavan, the same Shivling is covered with a vastra. Yeah. And then there's a complete difference in terms of how he is represented. But it is the same personality. So we don't need to distinguish from the perspective. We don't need to. Neither do we have to worry about how to accept Lord Shiva in terms of his form. The Shivalinga is a representation of who he is in this world. He's the maintainer, creator, destroyer in terms of the three different potencies are being managed, three different modes of nature being managed by him and Mother Durga. So in that sense, we can just pay respects to him as a Mahabhagavat Vaishnav, as a guru of the whole world, and beg him for mercy so that we could chant Harinam. That mercy would be granted by him. Our predecessor acharyas have had a lot of association with Lord Shiva, especially Sanatan Goswami. Srila Sanatan Goswami Pad had a lot of association. They were very, very close. He used to go every day to Gopeshwar Mahadev. He used to walk all the way from Madan Mohanji all the way to Gopeshwar Mahadev, which is some distance. I wouldn't call it very far, but it is still some distance for someone who is quite old. And then Gopeshwar Mahadev apparently came and wanted to reside very close to him. And there is a particular area of Vrindavan which is just behind Sanatan Goswamiji's Samadhi, which is where there is Bankandi. It is called Bankandi, where there's Bankandeshwar. So people come there to pay respects to Lord Shiva. And that Lord Shiva is supposed to have come because he didn't want Sanatan Goswami to go far. When Srila Sanatan Goswami was doing his bhajan in Govardhan, Chakleshwar Mahadev, Shiva used to be there as Lord Chakleshwar Mahadev. And he used to spend time with Sanatan Goswami. So they were very close, actually, in the sense that there was a lot of close association between Srila Sanatan Goswami and Lord Shiva. And you can find that. Historically, there's a lot of instances and precepts that indicate that. So the point is that we do not need to distinguish. We need to basically understand his position as an expansion of the Lord. We need to understand him in his position as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, as described in the Brahma Samhita, that he is an expansion, but again, he is not Krishna, but he is not different from Krishna either. In the 11th canto, Krishna says very clearly that those who disrespect him will never be able to reach me. Krishna basically makes this statement in the 11th canto that those who disrespect Lord Shiva, they will never be able to reach me. So he practically makes that point. So we do not need to run away from the Mahabhagavad. We just need to know how to approach him and take shelter as a guru and a disciple so that we can take shelter of him so that he could assist us in our journey.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Any other question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavata
Yeah.
Pranam Prabhu.
So there is a question. Yeah, please go ahead, please. Dandavad. Go ahead.
Sorry, you did mention, Prabhu, whatever like our identification connected with this body in this world, so it always creates problems. But sometimes, Prabhu, how we can have this balance, because we have to be in this world in order to do devotional service and chant and purify ourselves. Then, by the mercy of the Lord, whatever the destination is. So how we can really balance this? We have to identify as well when, especially when you are in a family. Are you getting my point, Prabhu? Do you understand my
Yes.
question?
So
Yeah.
yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
How?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Basically, we totally understand.
Sure.
Yes, the family.
No, go ahead. Please finish.
Yeah. Sometimes, of course, you know that you will be more enthusiastic, or the other member will be more enthusiastic, but then we will have, okay, no, we will talk, no, that's not the way, that's not the way. But it's sometimes you find very difficult, although it is the same devotional service that you want to perform. Sometimes it's very difficult, and then you want to give up, in the sense, not in a bad way. Okay, let it happen, but then you feel, no, this is not the right way, we should have done it better. So how we are going to be out of this situations, Prabhu? This, with this family.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Well, see, sure. The point is that Krishna says this very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, that what we need to do is we need to tolerate circumstances that do not encourage devotional service, which means if there are circumstances in our life which do not encourage devotional service, then we tolerate it. Just as much as when we go to a job, we don't identify with the identity of being someone there, but we tolerate the circumstances, but we yet do the duty that's required of in the office. You see, nobody can basically escape from what the demands are in a professional environment. Either that or they get fired. So they basically need to do what is required of them in a professional environment, but we tolerate the circumstances without really plugging into that particular environment and setting objectives based on that environment. So that is what we need to do elsewhere as well. If it is not encouraging to Krishna consciousness, we tolerate it. But what happens when we tolerate it? We don't run away from it, we tolerate it. And what happens when you tolerate it? When we tolerate it, we develop knowledge. And with that knowledge, we will develop detachment, you see? And that detachment would eventually allow us to able to look at the circumstances without allowing it to affect us. Does it make sense? That is what
Yes.
we need to do. We need to tolerate the circumstances whilst aspiring for improvements in the heart. And I've also answered this in the past, in the previous session. Because the universal form practically represents all the separated energies of the Lord, in one particular rupa, we have to understand that if we are experiencing the effect of something, the cause is also embedded in that effect. The original cause is Krishna. The secondary cause is material energy, which is managing it. It is also the karma that we have engaged in. So we need basically to have an understanding that whoever we are as of today, all the circumstances that we are surrounded by are nothing but representations of Krishna, who are basically encouraging us to move forward in our chanting. So we need to accept what it is today and tolerate the circumstances. Trinadapi Sunichena Taroriva Saishnuna. Taroriva Saishnuna means to tolerate the circumstances. Tolerate the circumstances and become humble by understanding that whatever we are today is arranged by Krishna. Then one has the ability to chant all the time. So I guess that's basically the message which Mahaprabhu wanted to convey as well. That is our system. Our system is to tolerate the circumstances and then to accept responsibility as humbly as we can on a day-to-day basis and execute our japa. And as a consequence, Krishna then would look upon us very favorably and we'll be able to move forward. All kinds of things can happen favorably.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I know you have mentioned this many times, but it's always good to hear again. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's why I know I mention it again and again because it's difficult to remember. You know, we have to step away each and every day and say that what we are today is an arrangement of the Lord. If you don't do it, then we wouldn't be able to accept it. In a similar fashion, we need to reflect on what the Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us, saying Krishna is in charge. There are so many things that we experience, but Krishna is in charge because ultimately he is the controller. So we need to accept the arrangements made by him with humility. Trinadapi Sunichena. Then we need to tolerate the circumstances. Taro Riva Saishnuna. Then Kirtane Sadahari will happen automatically because Krishna will remove the obstacles. He would basically say, yes, okay, you've learned your lesson. The knowledge has come. So let me just remove the troubles. So that's what will happen.
Yeah, and also, Prabhu,
Good.
of course, I do understand Krishna is there. But still, sometimes you get affected. And you yourself, you say, anyway, Krishna is watching. This is the best situation for me. He had put me that. But still, there is some bit of that it affects. Why is that? Is it because our sadhana is not strong, Prabhu?
There's no doubt. You know, no, affection and not being affected is because we are alive and we are conscious, we will be affected.
Okay.
When Abhimanyu passed away, Arjuna cried. Krishna was next to him. So should Arjuna not have cried at all? The answer is no. He cried because that is a perfect emotional response for someone losing, a child or someone who is very close. It's a perfect emotional response. So there's nothing wrong with being affected. What is wrong is to be affected to such an extent that we stop engaging in Krishna consciousness. That is problematic. Does it make sense?
Yeah, of course.
That's all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem at all. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to take a few questions on chat. How do we get devotional service? It is okay if we get attracted to a particular service, not minimizing the importance of other services, as Krishna sees how we are serving rather than what we are doing. Being attracted to a specific service is perfectly fine, absolutely fine. There really isn't any rule against it, and not minimizing the importance of the service, that's also the perfect attitude. So there really isn't anything against anything anyone does in the environment. There was this one time in New Vrindavan ages back. I think I saw Srila Radhanath Maharaj. He was cleaning the toilets, and this was after he had many thousands of disciples. This was in the early 2000 time frame, 21 years back. So the point being that one can clean the toilet, one can be on a pujari service in front of the altar within the service of the Lord. Both are appreciated fully by Krishna. So there really needn't be any bewilderment in terms of which is better and which isn't. At the same time, one also can be motivated by what they want to really offer to Krishna, which is fine. They can do so. But the only point I was wanting to make is that initially we are motivated by what we can offer and what we are interested in doing. But then as we keep chanting, then our senses develop the intelligence, or rather, we develop the intelligence, the spiritual senses develop the intelligence on how to serve Krishna in a way which is most appropriate. So that is basically the sensitivity that comes in due to Harinam. How do we know the difference between when we are supposed to tolerate and when we stop to do something about it? When we are supposed to do something about it. There really isn't a need for us to deliberate on whether we should do something about something or not do something. There is no need to be confused about whether we're supposed to act. We're always supposed to act, and we're always supposed to try and fix things and try to improve upon things in the context of Shastra, in the context of what is permissible by Guru and Gauranga. However, what we need to know is we need to first accept the circumstances as being arranged by Krishna. If you accept the circumstances as being arranged by Krishna, which is Trinada Pisunichena, Tarori Vasayishnuna, Krishna will give us the intelligence on how to act upon it. So, what to do about it requires intelligence. And that intelligence is going to come through Krishna when we accept that, yes, he is the one who has arranged the environment. If it is a situation, he has arranged it, I accept it, then Krishna will give us intelligence. He will say, okay, fix it this way, fix it that way. Yeah. So we are always supposed to make improvements. There's no doubt about it. We are always supposed to make improvements. We are supposed to act upon it, not unnecessarily, but with some deliberation, we are supposed to act upon it. We cannot be inert. We are supposed to make improvements. But the first principle is to accept it. The second principle is to tolerate it. Then intelligence comes in. Then we start acting on what Krishna wants us to do. So that's absolutely the approach. There really needn't be any waiting time. We can start thinking about it. But internally, we accept it. We are grateful. We don't complain. We don't say that I'm chanting 16 rounds, I'm worshiping you, and then look at my life, it's a mess. That is wrong. But what we need to do is say, yes, Krishna, this is your arrangement. And then please, can you just direct me on how to act upon this arrangement? Can I just act upon this arrangement? How do I act upon it? What is it that I can do so that I don't walk away from devotional service because I do something wrong? What is it that I can do? So these questions can be asked. The super soul who is within will give us direction. So acting upon it is required. We don't want to remain inert. Our movement is special because we want to basically think of ourselves as people who believe that Krishna is dependent on us. So, for example, Mother Yashoda feels Krishna needs to be fed, Krishna needs to be clothed, Krishna needs to be taken care of, he needs to be given a bath because she feels that Krishna is dependent on her. This is our movement. We feel the deity is dependent on us. The deity needs to be taken care of. The deity needs to be clothed. The deity needs to be fed. This is the time. He has not eaten for so long. This is our movement. So, as a consequence, we want to arrange for things as if they depend on us, but always knowing that the ultimate solution is going to remain with Krishna. If he chooses not to go along with what we have arranged, we will find everything collapse and we'll have to start again. But we need to make our attempts. But first, we need to accept the environment as his arrangement. I hope this is clear. Okay. My understanding is that Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna. Is Shiva a direct expansion from Krishna, or is it through Balaram? It is always through Balaram. Balaram is Sevaka Bhagavan. Balaram is Sevaka Bhagavan. He practically is an expansion who exists to serve the Lord, where he doesn't want Krishna to ever stop his dances and his wonderful activities with his devotee friends here in Vrindavan. He doesn't want Krishna to be bothered whatsoever. So Krishna's first expansion is Balaram, who wants to serve him so that Krishna can engage in that way. In a similar way, we notice in Lord Gauranga's appearance, Lord Gauranga was in ecstasy in Jagannath Puri, and he was engaging in kirtan, he was engaging in embracing Lord Jagannath, and he was just engaging in all kinds of wonderful transcendental ecstatic activity. It is Lord Nityananda who started preaching. So this is again Balaram. He said, Lord Chaitanya should continue his activities. I will go and preach. You see, that is the mood of Balaram. So Lord Shiva and every other expansion are from Balaram. Okay, so I'm a bit short of time. I just need to step out as well. So if there are any more questions, please do write to me. You can write to me in one moment. You can write to me.
Prabhu, can I ask a quick one,
Yes,
Prabhu?
sorry.
Prabhu, in the
Yes, please, we'll try. Sure.
morning walk, Srila Prabhupada says, observing Shivaratri, Nanda Maharaj, and all the cowards men, they increase their attachment for Krishna that is wanted. And also praying to Lord Shiva and asking his blessing because he is the topmost devotee. Is that appropriate, Prabhu?
Yes, you see, you have to have a natural inclination to do so. You don't need to do it, but you need to have a natural inclination. If you're
Okay.
inclined to him,
Yeah.
and there is an inclination where you want to approach him, there's nothing wrong because he definitely can give blessings. He can definitely give blessings.
Okay. Yes, I am actually. Yeah. I came to
Yeah.
get Krishna consciousness through him only. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, that's why I'm saying if there's a natural inclination, it's because you see, you've come into Krishna consciousness because of him. You always be grateful and you accept that he has directed you because that is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Yes, I think there's one last question on chat before it's shut down. One question not directly related to the class. When we read Bhagavad Gita with love and devotion, Krishna gives us or discloses more knowledge. Question is why devotees from different sampradayas get different philosophy when every great devotee from different sampradaya are blessed with the knowledge from the Lord. The philosophy is not different. To be honest, the four different Vaishnava sampradayas do not have philosophies that contradict each other. They do not. But the level of information provided in each is quite different, which means that Srimati Radharani and the activities of Krishna with Radharani are not shared in the other paramparas. They're not given out in the other paramparas. But does it mean that Madhuri Ras is not discussed? The answer is no. You will find Madhuri Ras is discussed in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Nammalvar and Andal, these are all two different alvars who, in the Sri Sampradaya, who discuss Madhuri Ras extensively and whose poems and whose writings and everything else are filled with Madhuri Ras. So it is not that this particular feature of being attracted to Krishna, as we discuss in the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is not present in the other Sampradayas. It is just that the level of information is not disclosed. Yeah, it is not disclosed. It could be for various reasons because they're attracting a certain kind of audience, they are preparing a certain kind of audience, they have a certain commission to basically offer a certain nature of knowledge to the world. There are so many different reasons for the acharyas to basically act upon it. So we don't need to think that it's different. It is not different, but there can be less information, more information. Those distinctions can be there because they are acting upon what was their mission and their audience and the kind of knowledge they have to provide for everybody else to benefit from. Yeah, I hope this is clear. All right, then. So I want to basically stop here. I thank you very much for joining us. We'll again connect in the following session, following Saturday, and we will discuss our Bhagavatam, the same 7th chapter, remaining verses in the subsequent weeks. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.